Well, so first got to know you. How long have we known each other now? It's been like at least 10 years, right?
Oh man, well, because it was it was through Bobby for sure.
Yep. Bobby's our mutual best friend. Yeah.
Shout out Bobby.
Yes. Shout out Bobby.
And Bobby, if you're watching this, you have to watch it to the end or leave it open on your phone because we need the watch time.
Yes.
Because he's the one definitely watching this.
Yes. We need the stats for
sure. You guys are like childhood friends.
Yeah.
And then I was over Bobby's house, and then we just got like, I don't know, we were around, just like friend group stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then later down the road, Bobby was like, I knew that you were going to go to school for filmmaking, or you were in school at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on down the road, Bobby was like, hey, like, I know you're doing kind of this stuff, and Mark's doing kind of this stuff, like, maybe you guys should reconnect. And then like I saw your work, you saw mine, we're like, oh, hey, yeah, you're serious.
Yeah, right.
They're reconnected.
Exactly. Yeah, it all just kind of just flew naturally from there. We've been, I'd say we're buddies, we're friends, I guess we've had some like overlap in business. We've helped each other out there. Mostly you've helped me out, I think.
One hand washes another, man.
Yes, exactly.
I don't do anything with cameras. So you help me and my clients.
Oh, thank you, dude. Like, and I don't know what I would go ballistic if I had to do anything tech related. That scares me. I'm just going to Dustin for that. Well, what would you say? So yeah, you kind of like walked us through there, like how we first met, and like where, I guess, along the way did entrepreneurship and just in general self-starting appeal to you? Like how did that come of interest to you?
It's an interesting question. Like thinking about that actual, like, I didn't get like bit by a radioactive spider or anything. So it's like, is there like a single moment,
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely remember being really frustrated at my corporate job and feeling like I was bonking my head against the ceiling, and I kept getting told to like stay patient, and I was, and then I feel like I lost like a sense of drive from that, like forcing me to be patient. And that's what caused me to start my first LLC. So like maybe some of that, but my mom did Avon and Mary Kay for a long time, and like, which are MLMs, but she ended up like almost getting a car with, so like she was good at it, and or good enough. And my dad has had like a side landscaping business for almost forever. He did it full time for a while. He lives in Louisiana, so he was doing lawn care. And then after Katrina, he had a fencing business because everybody needed to repair their fences. Mm-hmm. So he was doing landscaping and fencing. So, maybe there were some seeds planted really early on from watching my parents like make their own money in some other ways. And I went to a Montessori school, so maybe there were some weird, implanted things when I was younger. But eventually, I would say the real moment was when I was at that corporate job and just quit school, and I was like, I could probably learn more just doing my own thing. Mm-hmm. And started the first marketing business.
Nice. Could you tell people, just in case they don't know, what is a Montessori school?
I really have no idea what it is, but sometimes I forget that I had that. I think I went to Montessori for my first few years of education. It's a specific like private style of education, and it's like a bit offbeat. I don't know exactly how, but people seem interested when I say that I had a couple of years at a Montessori school. So could I really speak to it? I really don't think I could, but it was, I don't know, a quick Google search would say more than probably what I could say, but it was just like a bit offbeat. So like maybe there were some seeds planted there that I don't have to do anything exactly structured. And then maybe some seeds, from watching my parents have their own side income and stuff like that.
I think that's kind of a good lesson out of that, because I've been kind of realizing, like, nobody taught me how to run a business, really. I didn't really have much entrepreneurial people in my family growing up, certainly not in the immediate household. I mean, my dad kind of was, doing like investing, that sort of thing. But the idea of like having sort of a loose structure, and I think like a lot of us, at least I did, like when I first went in my own business, I kind of like was almost being like a prisoner to like my own self as like a boss, and like had to show up at this time specifically, like for this time. Maybe that works for some people, but what I've learned kind of like through you is like you just like do whenever kind of feels right for you. I mean, sure, there are times throughout the day when you may have to take certain calls with clients, that sort of thing, but whenever you feel like is most right for timing wise, productivity wise for you. I think that's an important lesson for young aspiring creatives and business owners to learn, right?
It took me a while. That prison you're talking about, like I was totally, because I was working at a Fortune 100 logistics company, so like where I couldn't be or I had to be clean shaven every day, so like super strict, like everything was really regimented. And so there's even examples of famous people that like that structure too, like Eminem. Like there's that famous story when he started working with Dr. Dre, like he came in at 9 and he like took a lunch and then like said, well, it's 5 p.m. I'm out of here. And so he was like, people do that. Like rappers will come in the afternoon and stay really late or whatever. Yeah. But that worked for Eminem at that time. And I think it helped me to, even if I was working from home, like get up early and shave and put on a button down, even though I'm just at my desk, like just getting in that mode. And eventually I think where I'm at now is honestly it matches most of society. I mean, Tatiana and I get up at 6 a.m. I'm usually at the office by 8. I start to I don't book any meetings in the morning. So I have like my focus time to get my stuff done, meetings in the afternoon. And then I go home, go for a run or go to the gym, eat dinner, like it ends up falling into like this normal cadence.
Right.
But within those days, if I have this general structure and one day, like I'm really not feeling it, then like I take a break.
Yeah.
But I think the idea, at least like the thing that I'm focused on now, is is also not holding myself back when I want to work. I think I had some of that too, where it was like, either way, just when judgment comes up on like what is correct or like the correct way to work, like that doesn't really exist. You're either getting the work done or you're not. And if I'm not getting the work done because I'm tired, because I've been turned on, my switch has been turned on for, 8 days in a row, and I'll take a morning off, or I'll sleep in a little bit, or I'll leave a little early, or But it's something that what helped reassure me in trusting that was Mr. Beast. He says that he's like, look, I just go until like maybe 8 to 10 days, and then I kind of burn myself out, so I take a day off, and then I go, and then when I feel like I can't go anymore, I stop, and I like that. That works for me right now. I work generally every day of the week. I have to like touch my inbox or like open a piece of software or something once a day just to like feel like I can relax a little bit. But I'll go just until I don't want to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's also important for people to hear. The idea of, productivity being superior to just busyness at the end of the day, I think in the long run. Because I've even kind of tried to make myself comfortable with that loose structure and more just keeping productivity priority at the end of the day recently. Like, for instance, like, I've been kind of realizing creatively I'm kind of a night owl. I always thought I was a morning person, which I certainly am. But when it's time to get creative, especially when I'm doing editing, I really thrive like in the evenings, just like, create a little ritual, light a candle, make a little decaf espresso. And then there was like a few nights in a row where I was like editing till like midnight, 1 a.m. And I didn't feel burnt out. I felt like energized. I'm like, okay, I can close it from here. But then there's other days, like you said, where like, I would just be exhausted from either work the day prior or whatever. I'm like, I'm going to take a day off because I know if I force myself to try and show up and do the work, I'm going to do a very half-assed job. So I might as well just get my energy back and then go back full throttle tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. You know, it's like kind of the reason why we're doing this stuff is because it excites us.
Right.
And so like use that excitement as a compass. And like if something's not exciting you, like it's the whole reason why we are working for ourselves is so we don't have to do stuff that doesn't excite us. That's the whole reason.
Exactly.
So like just follow that. And if you're excited in the evening, stay excited. That's fine. And if you're not excited doing something, then don't do it. That's, you know, and look, obviously sometimes some things need to get done, you know, or where like you have an obligation, you know, but it just staying aware of it. And then next time, you know, do the stuff that excites you less.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, aside from entrepreneurship and, you know, web development, you get really excited about chess.
Yeah, man.
I know that is your other passion. When did talk about like your love of chess? Like when did that begin? How did that happen?
For most people, it begins when you're young. Most people, they learn at school. They join a chess club when they're in elementary school, and it becomes their like extracurricular thing. I didn't really learn until I was an adult, so it's a little different. And so my stepdad taught me when I was maybe 9 or 10, and I think we played under 10 games, and then I beat him once, and we never played again. And then I played a couple times in high school, you know, just friends here or there, but I never learned an opening. I never like played chess, you know. I just knew how the pieces moved. And then I went to Kingside, and there was like a clubs fair, and all of them were kind of boring, but there was one where this like big tall guy was playing 4 people in chess at once and just trash talking, you know, openly, making like this spectacle on clubs day. And so I sat down, lost immediately, and I was like, all right, well, that was kind of fun. So I went to the first like meet, you know, after that, and it was maybe 20 of us in a room, you know, so like a bunch of nerds. And then I tried to 4-move my opponent, which is like a really cheap, like cheesy way to go for a quick win if like you're playing like your nephew, and you know what I mean?
It's a punch to the groin kind of thing.
Yeah. It's just cheap shot, you know, go for a quick win.
Yeah.
And then this, the guy I was playing goes, he's trying to 4-move me. And everybody's like, ha, ha, ha. And I just got like razzed on by all these dweebs. But I was hooked, man. And I got really focused on it. And so focused on it that the next semester they voted me president. And I was one of the better ones in the club. But I just like got super obsessed.
Wow. What do you think in particular was it? And I guess maybe tying that in like with what got you into like business. Is there something aside from just maybe the general scope of the game that was like fun? Like, I don't know, like sometimes like you can't necessarily explain like why you're fascinated by something. Like I just love this activity. I just love cooking. But do you think there's something like in your brain or is your personality that drew you to it, I think?
It's a good question because it's like, how do you answer that in the like, because some people get it and some people don't with chess. It's one of those things. Like it really does draw people down the middle. And the thing is, the first couple times you really play, like you play somebody that knows the game, I mean, you know you're going to lose. Some people, when they enter that game, they think, oh, I might win. You're not going to win. And some people, that they interpret that as, okay, cool, I'll do something else. and other people, and I think it was the case for me, was like, I really hated losing. And what I liked about chess was there was no chance. Like I lost and I could not make an excuse. I could not come up with any other reason besides I lost and I deserve to lose. And I think at that point in my life, you know, the thing that I got from chess was like discipline and staying dedicated to something and seeing yourself get better and gaining that confidence. And people can get that from get from sports or their side thing, or there's so many different ways that people can that can develop for people. I just didn't have that until that point, and so that's really the value I got out of it, was like, wow, if I dedicate myself to something, I will get better over time, which to a young person, you don't really believe that, because you don't have the experience of getting good at something. You just kind of have to trust the adults around you and hope it'll work out. And chess was that thing where I started to see a little bit. Was I studied for a couple weeks or a month or two, and then I started to lose a lot less, and then I started to, you start to gain that momentum, and I just the second I learned, kind of stepping back, I don't know if I've told you this, but I played StarCraft 2 in high school.
You briefly told me this once, yeah.
So I think it's actually important when talking about my chess career to mention StarCraft, because I learned originally that idea of like staying dedicated to something and getting good. I learned from that. Mm-hmm. So instead of doing my homework, I would play StarCraft 2, which is it's a video game. It was like, for a little while, it was pretty much like the national sport of South Korea.
Oh, wow.
And it's really hard. It's like, it just like transcends fun, and it's like, it's not fun, it's just hard, and you just, you win or you lose. But I felt that sense from playing that game that like I would play Call of Duty, and when I played those games, I would gravitate towards like free for all, or things where I didn't have a team, and where if I lost, I felt like it was maybe immature in a way, where if I lost, it had to be something I had control over,
Yeah.
So StarCraft was this thing that I felt like I had complete control over winning and losing, and eventually got to like top 3% in the North American ladder, just like grinded that game out. And then I kind of put that down. I was like, all right, well, I got to do something else. And there was strategy involved with that, and there was a lot involved, and chess kind of was my thing to replace my obsession for StarCraft 2. So that was like, there was that momentum from StarCraft into chess, but it's been chess kind of ever since.
That's wonderful. You're kind of making me remember back, like when I was a child, like, and I would play games. I also had that sense of like, I would take kind of like failure personally, and I hated losing. And maybe it's part of the reason why I didn't do, now that I think of it, a lot of sports growing up, because, I wasn't really good at, baseball or soccer or whatever. And eventually I found my way into martial arts. And I think similar to chess, I think martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu, which I eventually later tried, is you start out, like, everybody sucks when they start. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your physique is or how many Bruce Lee movies you watched. Everybody sucks when they begin. And it's not a matter necessarily of, like, winning or losing. It's like, how do we make you suck less, a little bit more, And I wonder, it's like, yeah, I think with both chess and with like martial arts, and this is also true in business, it's entirely meritocracy, It's entirely just skill, practice, improving more and more every day.
Yeah, 100%. And it's been around a long time. Mm-hmm. And that's I think why I'm sticking with this the longest, is because it's been here far before me, and it'll be here after me, well after me, where StarCraft, I think, will come and go, and but if I'm going to choose something to stay dedicated to that I get a lot of value from, and I get a lot of these like side benefits of, chess is just kind of that thing.
Yeah. Well, going into that a little deeper, like this as side benefits, like I can definitely see this in you, like your interest in chess coinciding with being a business owner, and not only that, but you being the president of chess club. So there's also like a leadership component there. Like how do you how can one maybe like approach any business like a game of chess?
All right. People are not going to like this answer.
All right.
Okay. I think that there are actually more differences between business and chess than there are similarities. I think they're fundamentally very different. And I'll be the first to say, like, believe me, man, I want to tell you that, like, all the work I'm doing on chess, I'm justifying it because it's helping me in business. And, like, there may be some truth to that. But there's it's a really good book called Finite and Infinite Games. I forget the author, I'm sorry. And Sam Senek, the guy that wrote the book, Start With Why. He does a lot of public speaking. He has a TED Talk on how infinite and finite games relate to business. So though they could probably do a better job explaining this stuff, but I'll do the best I can. And the author of this book says if there's going to be two kinds of games, we can define them as finite and infinite game. A finite game is chess. It's a start. There's an end. There are rules. We agree to play, which is an important part of a game, is that the players are agreeing to play. You can't force somebody to play because fundamentally then it's not play, right?
Yeah.
So the point of a finite game is to win. Like that's the point of football, of soccer, of chess, whatever it is there's a set rules, set players, and you win. And with an infinite game, the point of an infinite game is to remain in play. And so I see business as an infinite game. I don't see it as a finite game. And so that's why I mean that they're fundamentally different. And that's not to say the author of the book says that a finite game can exist within an infinite game, but not the other way around. So if business is an infinite game, maybe a year is a finite game within that, where like there's a set like rule where I have to make so much revenue, so much profit, so many sales, and you can kind of like chunk a year down to a win or a loss. And if you run out of money, do you lose in business? And you can make these kinds of like finite game boxes, but fundamentally, it just changes, I think, your whole perspective on it. Where, and like you're saying with jiu-jitsu and like team games, where I really don't imagine any other marketing or web person or any other entity that exists in the market. I never really interpret them as a competitor, because I see it as we're not competing. You're in your game and I'm in my game, and we're all versus the market. And so there's no, like, you know what I'm saying? Where I think a lot of people will have this perspective of like, it's you versus your competitor in this game of chess, and like you're going to outsmart your competitor. And like, I just don't see business that way. And I could probably have benefited a lot more from sports growing up, where it maybe is more of a team game. And it maybe is more of this, Gary Vee has this really good perspective on this, where if there's two basketball players in the NBA and they're at a club, like they're boys. Hey, you're in the NBA, I'm in the NBA, we're homies, we're at this club, we're having a good time, you and me, we vibe, right? But on the court, it's me and you. And I kind of see business as the same way. Other entrepreneurs and other people in our industry, we vibe. I know that they went through the same struggles I went through to like come to this this point in their life where they wanted to take a leap on, trust themselves and like bet on themselves. And I can relate to them in that way. I never really see them as this like competitor in chess. And in the same way, since I run the chess club, I play versus the same people frequently. And so we have some like rivalries, but I love those guys. No matter how much I shit talk them, no matter the things I say to beat them down emotionally, I have such an endearment for them,
Awesome.
And so I think I know it's like a really long-winded answer, but I really thought a lot about this philosophy of how much does business really relate to, or chess relate to business?
It's an interesting answer, and I think I like that idea of like a finite game versus an infinite game. And you talk about like your opponent. I think in business, ultimately, at the end of the day, your opponent is you. I've learned I'm my biggest, my own worst enemy, and my boss is an asshole sometimes.
Yep.
And my boss helped my opponent, helps me grow up. He can also hold me back too, and I'm sure maybe you feel the same way as well.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. It's it's funny. Jed and I were actually talking about this yesterday. I had him on for my podcast yesterday, and the idea again of like an infinite game, just being business. You may think as your business grows, as you get more revenue in, whatever, it's like you're winning. It's like, well, you're winning, I guess, in the finite sense, but you know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know what's going to happen to the economy. It's like it's this kind of endless sort of winning and losing. And again, it's not like your competition is necessarily a physical, tangible other opponent. Like I said, it can be yourself or the world, however you want to view it. And so, yeah, I think that's important to recognize too, is like part of this being an infinite game. It's not always going to be a constant gradual, I'm getting there. It's a day by day battle, it's sink or swim. And, I'm really into wildlife, and I think it's something like 90% of hunts are unsuccessful. You think even the baddest lion on the pride, and I think technically females are the ones that do the hunting. The baddest female lion on the pride, and she's losing most of the time, So it's an interesting dynamic to think about.
Yeah, man. If you think about like who's a successful business, like think about like what's the first one that comes to mind? Like Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like you're saying that because they've been in business a long time.
Yeah.
And that's like the goal of an infinite game, is to remain in play as long as you can. And so if you're viewing your own business that way, really stretches that time horizon out, where you're not thinking about sales for the quarter or goals for the year. You're thinking, how does this entity survive for the longest amount of time? And so it's a part of the like fun of business, is that there's all these layered time horizons. Some decisions need to be made on the short term, some on the really long term. And you're always kind of weighing these like overlapping pros and cons. And so, if I were to like give some similarities between chess and business, a lot of chess is decision making. It really is just, chunking down. There's something like more possible games of chess that exist than atoms in the universe, and that's true based on probability of pieces. So there's like every single time you play, it's a completely different game, right? But there are these like rules and principles within chess, even within the first couple of moves. And when I teach somebody chess, you teach these principles so you can logically, no matter how complicated the position gets, no matter how many things you're trying to keep in mind, you can always reduce this decision to a couple principles. And it's how I play chess. There's another guy in my club who plays in a very different way. It's all sharp. It's all tactical. It's all aggression, And I play mostly because people look to me as like the guy that runs the club. I have to play in a certain way. Like if somebody I run the club, and I just like whoop you with some like tactic you don't know about, people go like, well, I don't want to, I don't play anymore. So I play in this like really, really solid, really principled manner, and like boring chess. It's like really structured. I'm not going to give you an inch. You're not going to find a hole in my position. I'm going to be aggressive and defensive. I'm trying to play this like really whole game. and I play business in a really similar way. I don't take too many risks. Everything that I do within business, I want to take a step forward, even if it's slow, and I hate taking 2 steps back. So I will pause, take a couple extra moments, and when I play my piece, I know it's in line with my long-term goals. Like I'm very rarely do I like make rash decisions in business and in chess.
Tremendous. How does one get better at like making decisions, especially entrepreneurially, and like when's a good idea to know like when to take those risks? Like, I don't want to say like how to be a better risk taker, because it sounds like you don't do a lot of that, which is fascinating. I feel like a lot of people emphasize the idea of take big risks. How does one navigate, be better at decision making? Yeah.
Well, I think business in and of itself and going into business for oneself is inherently a risk. So you are already taking on a risk. And depending on the business, it could be very capital intensive. You could have drawn a loan. Like there is risk built into this thing already. So you don't need to add much more to it. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So it's all minimizing it. And risk is important. Don't misunderstand that risk is important. And there are famous people like Peter Drucker, guy that kind of the father of modern management theory, has this famous saying that all profit is in the risk. And that's a age-old thing, right? Like risk and reward, right? So it's in relation. And so I'm saying that I am maybe prudent in I will take minimal risk for consistent minimal return in certain things. And not to say that if I really think about a position and I really chunk my decisions down and I see that taking a bigger risk will yield a bigger reward greater than the probability of it not working out, I'll take it. But there's like this moment in chess. I had this issue where I'd be calculating and like I feel like there's a move here. I feel like there's a tactic, but I can't see it, right? I can't exactly make the moves, but I'm gonna make it anyways, and I'll figure it out. And you play some good people, and that stops working out. You know what I'm saying? So I do the same thing in business. If I can't see that it's going to work out, if I can't write it down and work it out, pen and paper, that it's going to get a return, I'm not going to overstep my risk. Unless I can work it out, then I'm going to get a return. I don't leave it up to fate too often.
So would you say you're not like, you don't necessarily go with your gut, or you more kind of like, I'm going with what I see, not to throw in a pun, but what I see on the board, I'm just going off of that. No like sixth sense, nothing like that here, would you say?
I would say when it comes to some things, like I think sales, like in negotiation, I feel like that is way more of a dance and a vibe and a feel than I gave it credit for earlier in my career. It was way more based on tonality and vibe and do I get a good, because I've gone through, sales processes where I get some red flags, I get some weird feelings, but like it kind of makes sense, it's good revenue, whatever, and then it doesn't go well and I break even or I lose a little bit of money, and it's like, I felt those red flags. I feel like I should have listened to that, And so it's maybe a little bit of both, where that is an element that I'm taking into account is like, all right, revenue, how's our cash flow? Can I, afford to take this on with our workload? Are the vibes right? It's all kind of in the same decision-making process. So to answer your question, like, how do I recommend, like, what's my decision-making process? I think it depends on the priority. And so the priority for most businesses is to keep the money that they make, is to, yes, bring in cash flow, but not just make the money, but keep the money. You know, like you watch enough Shark Tank, and people say like, "What are your revenues?" And they're like, "Year to date, it's like 3 million." And then they're like, "Oh wow, that's great." And then they say, "All right, what are your numbers?" And they say, "We are not profitable yet." And they all go, "Oh," and it's like, because nobody cares how much money you make; it's how much money you keep. And I've heard people walk into Shark Tank and they make, 500, 600,000, but they kept, half of it. They have really high margins. And like, that is more impressive to like business owners, is like how much you keep, So in terms of decision making, I like that as a priority. I like, I that, how much time it's taking from your week, because so like the opportunity cost of your time. So if you're maxed out workload wise, and like people keep giving you work, like that's a new problem to have. Like that's something to navigate, where you can't actually say yes to everything, without something falling and not fulfilling your obligation to somebody.
Right.
Like that happens. And so sometimes in business that does happen. It happened when I had the moving business, where, I hated doing this because people relied on me for their move, and like those timelines are tight and that's important. And it's a really stressful moment in somebody's life, and they're relying on me to not add to that stress. So if the truck had a breakdown, or if some unforeseen thing caused us to be like, all right, we can only get 5 jobs done today, and there's 7 on the schedule, who's getting cut? Like that's a tough decision to make, right? So how do you chunk that down? It's different to the moment and to the circumstance, but I will always retreat to this position of, all right, what is the priority? What is the priority here? What has to get done? Who has to be serviced? If I cut this one, can we do 6 today? You know what I mean? And you're just staying focused on what is I'm trying to think of a different way to say priority, but like
our mission, our focus.
Yeah, maybe not so, I like that too, right? You can always retreat back to your values.
Yeah.
And like, what are the values and the why of the organization, and like, is this action in line with our why and our mission? It's a great way, to a great position to make a decision from, right? And in the micro, can be a little different, but you're bringing up a great point with an organization's why. And determining those core values helps the compass, helps to serve as a compass for making those decisions within your organization and yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's powerful. I think, I'm really big on core values. I don't know why. I guess, I think I just have this obsession with identity and self-awareness, and, not everybody's values can be a little different and a little unique. And I think that's so cool. I'm always fascinated by that, because it, as you said, it serves as like a compass for like where you're going and how you make decisions, where everybody can maybe make decisions differently. It's like, well, is speed more important here, or is quality more important here, or, this or that, whatever. I'm very big on core values for sure.
Yeah. And there's even that book Traction.
Yes.
By EOS.
You introduced me to that, and that changed the game for me.
It's one of the few business books that's really tangible. Just like got right to it, and you could read the first 3 chapters over and over and over again and get something different from it at each stage in your business. And they use this document called the VTO, Vision Traction Organizer. Yes. First thing they start you with is the core values. Right? That's first thing. They're like, well, how are you supposed to decide on what your 5-year goal is if you don't have these like values that are going to help define that? So I think that's actually a really great point that you made, that the principles of making these decisions, to chess, to business, is those core values. I think is a great tip.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it serves as a reminder that this is not for the faint-hearted. You have to have some bigger reason. Like, what are you doing this for? You know, there's a show I like, Boardwalk Empire, making a shameless TV reference, but Steve Buscemi's character, he's a big bootlegger throughout the entire show, and he's trying to go and do a deal with Joe Kennedy to go in with Bacardi rum right when Prohibition is going to end. So they're going to be like gazillionaires, and Joe Kennedy's trying to feel him out, and you know he's made all this money. He's the most successful bootlegger in the country, and he's like, well, what are you doing this for at the end of the day? And he just doesn't have an answer. And he's like, I'm not going into business with you, dude. So it's important, I think. It's with chess, with business, to have a why, and because it'll allow you to kind of carry on through with this in these tough times as we're talking about, you know. Yeah.
You know, and it helps with staff too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, you know, ultimately, if we remain in play long enough and we want to solve enough big problems, we're going to need the help of other people, and that's what a business can grow into as an organization. And if your purpose for your organization is to make money, then they'll go work for somebody else that'll pay them a little bit more, you know. But if your company has a mission that the people are driven to help you see through, then they'll stick with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Are there other components of the game of chess, and also, like, you know, you leading the chess team as the president, particular to your industry and web development, is there any sort of crossover, or vice versa, web development helping out in chess, how you are a better player, a better leader, that sort of thing?
It's an interesting question. You know, I'm not sure if, you know, like I would say that my perspective on web right now is very like less is more. I think a lot of our designs right now, I think a lot of our perspective on, you know, client obligations is this like minimal, less confusion kind of style. And so I think there's some similarities in chess where, you know, chess is relatively straightforward. You know how the pieces move, and, you know some general principles. And so I think maybe we have that kind of approach with our designs. And that's from a couple things. Looking at now that we've built all these sites, you know, over 30 the last 2 years, we can see all their analytics, and people are not looking at as many pages as you think they are. They're spending not a lot of time on a web page, and they're bouncing around quickly to a couple pages and either taking an action or they're not and leaving. And like on average, it's between like 1 and 3 pages. And so why does a website have to have more pages? Depends on where they come in. So somebody could come in through the home page and needs to know about you and your about page before they go to the contact page. Some of them come into their home page and they need to see a specific service page before they're ready. Some people come from Google right to that service page, and there's a contact form at the bottom, and that's all they need, you know? So I think that, the like minimal, sleek kind of thought process to our designs right now is maybe the closest relationship to chess.
Cool. Very good. I guess I like this idea of like your next move in chess and in business. I was listening to an interview with Patrick Bet-David, and he made this comparison with chess players and the highly successful leaders and like the wealthiest people in the world. And he's like, both are calculating like several moves ahead, and in chess and in business. And what I mean by that is like thinking ahead, like not just, you know, how a lot of people may think in life, just kind of getting through the week. He's like, no, you need to be thinking not only in terms of quarters, but where are you going to be a year from now, 3 years, 5 years, thinking 10 years. And there's something I've been trying to do too. Is like, I get kind of I'll get lost in the weeds, I guess you would say, of where I'm at today. But I'm always trying to think, what's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind years down the line, even when I die. I'm really thinking about that. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, memento mori, brother.
Mm-hmm. I might get that tattooed on me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it too.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a great reminder. The more you read about stoicism and all that stuff, like it really has a lot of practical value to like, remember that. And going back to like infinite games, that means that my entity is either going to live on past my life or it's not. And I get to decide. Is that what I want for Kingside, for this entity, And that was a decision point that I had to make. Do I want Kingside to live on past me? And I don't think I do. I think that I can have that drive for a separate entity. I think that this one that I've got right now is like a representative of me. And if, but that's not to say I don't want to leave a legacy, but not through this entity. And I think that was difficult for me to decouple, because it was like, no, I mean, every entity has to live on forever. And like, I can choose to remove myself from play and remove this entity from play. But that doesn't mean that I can't use it to maybe buy up some local businesses and add a lot of technology and modernize them and hire good people and have a good staff and a good brand and some new apparel and grow it and scale it and then resell it and have that, now that new HVAC company or now that new, laundromat or whatever can now service that community in a better way past me, and past my involvement in it, So when you say like making decisions and thinking steps ahead, I try to think as many as I can. It really as far as you can. And you do find that playing versus good chess players. And the better you get, the margins get so slim, where a mistake doesn't look like a mistake, but ends up revealing a mistake in 10 moves, 6 to 10 moves. Mm-hmm. And I find a lot of similar things in business where you make some decision that is an inaccuracy or a mistake, you really won't see that result of that for a while. You may not,
mm-hmm. Right.
And then it can be tough to correct that action.
Yeah.
So every single decision you make, really, is it playing into this very far vision you have for your business? And that's why tools like the VTO and other things where like you really get it down on paper and like, look at, does this decision plug into this? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's important to hear, because it's like, yeah, these little steps you make, it's not going to, grow like a gold. It's not, you're not going to hit a gold mine today or even tomorrow. These great things, these great achievements, they take a long time to accrue. But the converse to that is like really bad situations. And, sure, there could be an overnight, success or an overnight, tailspin. But all these little decisions that you make day by day, they can either take you drastically forward or drastically backward. It's true with, whether you're addicted to smoking and you get lung cancer later on, or obesity, anything like that. You can apply this to any facet of life, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, that decisions compound. And so like making these small incremental correct decisions stack up over time. Mm-hmm. And same thing with negative decisions. If you're making consistently, in both directions, you're just going to stay still. And that's most of struggles in business, is that people stagnate. They're spinning their wheels. That's the whole point of the book Traction, is you have to gain, people spin their wheels in business. That is like, they're spending as much as they're making, or they're not growing, or they've been at this revenue for 5 years and they don't know what their plateau is. Like, usually the issue in business is that you're just staying still. And the issue with that is that the market, the S&P 500 will do, 6 to 8% year over year. And like the general economy is like improving 6%, every year. And so if your business is not increasing its revenue by 5 or 6% every year, then you're not matching the rate of inflation. So you have to be in this constant state of growth. And growth requires change, and change is hard. And you have to be making these small changes so it's not as hard, because otherwise you go 5 years, you haven't increased your revenue, and then you've got to make a big decision. You have to cut somebody that's been with you a long time, or you have to completely invest in a new piece of technology to service a new market, or you whatever it is. When you make big decisions in business, it inherently comes with more risk. So if you can break those up, make those smaller incremental decisions, test things out, minimize your risk, always stay engaged in that mode of change, and like that perspective of like, I'm doing this for the long run and not getting complacent, I think you'll be successful.
Yeah. I think there's a humility element there too, for sure. The idea of like these small incremental changes, an analogy, the tortoise, won the race, and I think it's easy now, I think, for people to want to kind of live fast, run fast, burn that midnight oil, which there may be periods, episodes where that may be necessary, but it really just seems like it's not how hard can you stay in this, but how long can you stay in this game? Again, chess reference, but
I think so. And you start to see the decisions that people make when you start to think about it that way. You see some people who, and it can cause this sense of like FOMO in you, where like you see somebody make a really big growth in a couple years or in a short amount of time, and you're like, wow, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
But then they could come around and say, well, had to pack it up. They just took on too much risk and it didn't pay off. And that happens. It happens all the time. Right. So it takes like like you said, humility and patience, right, to be like, look, I don't need to grow. What for? Who? For what? I don't need to showboat and make another $100,000 just so I can tell more people about it. What I want is an entity in a business that cash flows really nicely. I feel fulfilled and doesn't take up too much more of my time.
Right.
And this entity, that's what I want out of it. And that's how it is right now. Really small team, just me and a couple people that I really like working with, that are really good at what they do. I don't want to scale this thing to 20 employees. That's not to say I don't feel that drive to be a leader and grow something else to that size, just not with web and in this current entity.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's important to hear, because I don't know who I could blame it on, but there is, I think, in culture now, maybe particularly in the West, I'm not sure, but this idea of just constantly wanting more and more and more. And I think it's important to have this perspective of wanting more out of life, learning new lessons, taking on new pursuits, that sort of thing. But I guess in the sense of business, like, yeah, growing, I need to grow to 20 employees, then 100, then 1,000, and this idea, it's like, well, what's more important, this constant growth or just your own happiness and your own peace, right?
Yeah, really defining that success, really defining it. And it can be, there's so much nuance. Like the success of me as a person is not linked to my business. Yes, it helps a lot, right? But like they are different. And like I can be successful in other areas. And, this business and defining success for it is different than maybe another business, or, what I want to get out of different uses of my time. Like how would I define success for my chess club, and the Worcester club is not how much money it makes, right? Like that's not how I'm defining success for that, right? It is how I'm defining success for my business. And yes, one is an S Corp, one's an LLC. So like are they for profit? Yeah. But like that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing like a success for me is number of members. So it's a different, completely separate number. Number of members on my chess.com account. It's we're a verified club. We've got over 200 now, which is great. I'd love to get to 300. I don't make any money, So it's just, but I get fulfillment from that growth, but in a different way, where I don't feel this sense of like number of clients or number of employees or number of websites built with my business. It's profit margin. It's like, can we do cool stuff comfortably and enjoy doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important to recognize is like, how are you optimizing? How are you measuring for, again, that idea of your own happiness and your own peace in whatever you do? And it's going to look different for everybody. Absolutely. Well, you were talking about, I guess, the sort of the moves in web development right now, what's been going on with trends, I guess what you've been seeing, how that plays out in that industry. Another thing, calculating next moves. I know you're really big into AI. I was thinking, looking ahead into the next maybe year, or if you can maybe think even longer or wherever, I'm not sure, like timing wise, how it looks like. What are you calculating for the next moves in AI?
So I start with thinking about the last time we had like a tech boom. Okay. And I think the .com boom is a really good example of that. And there's a fundamental difference between the two booms. The .com boom was like, hey, the internet is this thing, not really owned by anybody, maybe the telecom companies, but everybody has their opportunity to make their money with this thing, And so there was like pets.com and all that stuff where it was like all these .coms, this is going to be the next big thing. And since it was so diversified, it flooded the market and then only a few survived. And what's happening with this AI boom is the exact opposite. The people really making the money are like, you can count them on a hand. It's Microsoft, Apple, Amazon. It's the big conglomerate tech companies that exist right now that have been, anytime some kind of tech startup like seedling pokes itself out of the ground, they say, we're going to buy you. And if you don't, we're going to replicate you and kill you. And that's just been the landscape for tech. You saw it with like Snapchat and Facebook and, all of these tech companies that are trying to make a name for themselves. There's really only the big ones. So AI is being fought at this like titan level. It's like Microsoft versus Google versus Amazon. So I've learned that I think how I'm playing AI is that it has drastically reduced the cost of software. And that's why all these tech companies are having massive layoffs and things like that. And for the general everyday consumer, the B2B consumer, they think they have to go download an app. Oh, AI is here. I got to go get the AI app, And I just think that is so I think it's so short term. I think it's maybe going to be the buzz the next like year. I think people will make good money like selling an app that does one really specific thing and is branded and marketed in a particular way. And then it'll die off. Is like all of the AI apps. I wouldn't be investing in any AI apps, mostly because I saw it really early on. So I started using GPT-3 to help with some JavaScript code back in 2022, like August 2022, and then November is when ChatGPT came out, and then kind of the rest is history. But so I've been using it a long time, and early versions of it, I got access to the API really early on, and we built a PDF reader. So you can make a chatbot that plugs into a back-end knowledge base through PDFs. So like ChatGPT was okay, but it didn't know everything. So it would be great if you could combine the power of ChatGPT with specific knowledge. That was the idea. And so we were like, I asked some people around, like, if you had to ask a question to a PDF, what would it be? And this finance guy was like, oh, the U.S. tax code. I was like, oh, why? I was like, well, it's 4,500 pages, and I know no CPA's ever read it, you know? But they use it for auditing. So I was like, oh, it's a great idea. So we were building this chatbot for accountants, so they could, during auditing, they could ask the U.S. tax code questions.
Oh, wow.
Then ChatGPT came out with an update where, hey, you can upload PDFs now. Just killed like 2,000 startups that were all PDF readers.
Oof.
So I think that trend is going to keep going. And anytime somebody comes up with an idea or a use case of AI, it's just going to be incorporated into ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic. These big, large language models that already exist are just going to add these on as features instead of an app that does this and an app that does that. It's going to be a very strong multi-use tool.
Interesting. I know you're obviously very excited about AI in general. Do you find with other web developers, other people in your industry, people feel the same way, or are there a lot of people that are intimidated by it? Because I know it's kind of a mix in my life. I see people that are either really excited about it or really afraid of it. How's that like for the rest of people in web development?
Well, I'm a bit of a futurist, so like I got excited right away, you know, and I'm not afraid like of disruptive changes to the industry, because I don't really have, you know, at that time I didn't have much invested in the industry, so any kind of new break in technology allows me to get ahead. So like it was something that excited me for sure. But I definitely understand people who have been doing their thing a while, and they don't like having to relearn a lot, and that can be kind of annoying. And I understand that. I think in this sense, in this case, the genie's a bit out the bottle, and I think people's greatest fear is that they'll be replaced by some technology, and I just don't think that is going to be the case at all. I think that it's going to be a while for this technology to like really be able to straight up replace anybody. However, professionals who use it will outperform professionals who do not, and will therefore replace those other professionals within their industry. And I think that is just a fundamental, you know, we're in a capitalistic society. Again, it is about how much money you keep. So if something comes along that allows you to do the same or more work at less cost, you're going to do that, because if you don't, somebody else in the market will do it and provide a better product or service at a better rate. And we saw that, you know, I didn't see that, I wasn't there, but when like Excel was now a thing, and CPAs and financial people no longer had to do giant handwritten drafting, you know, spreadsheets where it's like you make a change and it's an eraser, you know, now it's Excel and there's email, where I'm sure that there were businesses that didn't adapt to that technology and fizzled out.
Yeah. I'm not really afraid of AI. I'd like to say I'm an optimist about it. I do not subscribe to the idea that, you know, it's like Terminator, they're going to take over the world or whatever. In particular, so in my industry with filmmaking, you probably know of Sora. Yeah,
of course.
It's there's a big buzz about that about a few months ago now, and I saw a lot of people in my industry like freaking out when they saw this. So for people who don't know what I'm talking about, Sora is almost like a ChatGPT for. I think it's actually through ChatGPT, right?
It's by OpenAI. Yep.
Right. Yeah, and it's it basically simulates video or photo footage of any kind. You type it in. Give me drone footage over a village in Utah in 1901, and it'll do that. And I'm not afraid of that at all because, as you said, the idea of professionals who will use this technology versus those who don't, and you think like, okay, I could use this for if I need like stock footage for maybe a certain project or whatever, versus like, it's like I'll just type this in. I know exactly what I need to get versus someone who's maybe spending more money on like, I don't know, going out and doing like a shoot. Now it's like sinking into the client budget, or maybe they have to endlessly search through the results on a stock footage site. I think it'll outperform in that regard. So I don't think it'll put necessarily people out of business, except for maybe people who don't. At the end of the day, I'm getting kind of into the ideas weeds here, but like who don't know how to tell a story, and who don't know more than just specifically how to use certain gear. I think in filmmaking, I think if anything though, it may hurt stock footage sites in particular. But to wrap this all into a general theme here, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think it like you said, we can be excited about it. Some people may not be, but I think it's, again, in a capitalist society, it's only going to make more progress in the long term for work and product in general, I think. Yeah.
We're seeing the rollout happening within industries. Mm-hmm. So AI, when people say like AI, I interpret that as the fundamental large language models. So OpenAI, Llama by Meta, Anthropic, and Gemini by Google, right? Anthropic is now invested by Amazon. So like it's all kind of these big ones. And then they have API access so people can use these tools in their own software. So like we've seen it with Loom. Loom is that like screen recording software for the listeners. And like you hit a hotkey, starts recording, has a little bubble for my face, for my camera, and like I say something, right? Then Loom added on recently where it can use OpenAI's Whisper module, which will transcribe the video and then use ChatGPT to write a summary, right? So like the technologies that already exist will get supercharged and like superpowered by AI, but the real change is happening within the models themselves. That's really the fundamental shift. So within each industry, the softwares that people use right now are being supercharged. And so everybody's getting really efficient. So like, what is your differentiator between you and other options in the market? And I think that can be scary for people because it's showing them that like there is less differentiating you from the market. And, as well as I do, when you're talking with somebody in a marketing kind of conversation and they have to make a video or a landing page or whatever, you at some point it comes up like, all right, who's your ICP? Who's your ideal customer profile? And what is your unique selling proposition, your USP? And most people say something silly like local or good service. And it's, well, what if there's somebody else who's local and also has good service? And it's, you're really pressing on the issue that like the bar is being raised. And that's what I think people feel very uncomfortable about, is that, there was an attorney and like they have to go through all of this schooling in order to get to the very bottom rung to just be a lawyer, right? And then at some point, there's going to be LexisNexis, which is a software that has all of these different cases, and lawyers use that software to research different cases that can be useful, right? Then AI gets added to that software, and then also has a marketplace of attorneys. And then LexisNexis now, instead of servicing lawyers, now starts to service people seeking lawyer advice, sees what it can do to answer with its lawyer chatbot and its knowledge base, and then can connect you with a lawyer and make a fee the same way that Zillow did, right? And that's just like taking a stab in the dark on like what LexisNexis could do with AI. You know what I mean? And that's across multiple industries that now lawyers have to be like, man, what's the differentiator? And the differentiator is a good lawyer will listen to you and understand and like steer you in the right direction and help find the nuance in the law, right? And the differentiator between a good and a bad lawyer is not changing. It is the like bar of what is like the bare minimum to expect from a lawyer is getting higher.
Yeah.
So it's causing everybody to have to be even better. And I think in the short term, the people that are already within these industries right now should be so grateful and thankful that it is happening right now and it's not happening before you get into an industry. Mm-hmm. That has got to suck. That's got to suck for everybody coming out of school. I feel so bad. Anybody that's going to school for computer science right now, I feel terrible, you know, and computer science professors completely disagree, you know. And there's a lot of truth, you know, in their perspective too. Like, yes, we still need to know people that can code and like can software engineer. Like we still need those people. But you look at what's happening in the tech landscape and these entry-level positions just don't exist anymore. Like you can have a senior-level engineer that has bots that help them instead of an entry-level like code workhorse who starts to learn these kinds of things and is using what they learned in school, and then the senior-level engineer is helping to shape their understanding, and through that work mentorship, they become great. And like, that's what helps them to get there. If all of these industries are good people utilizing these tools to do the grunt work, what happens? Like there's less and less entry-level positions within industry. So I think over time, there is less and less really qualified individuals, and we might become more reliant on these tools. And it takes hard work to be good at anything. And so these tools will cause a sense of complacency in a good portion of the population who don't need to become an expert. They'll just be good enough. You know what I mean? So I think for people who are truly good at what they do, there will be less room at the top. And I think people will still want, like for the people who are good at what they do, they will be well compensated because there will be less competition at the top.
Fascinating. No, it's an interesting point about AI. It's interesting because I think you're absolutely right in that, like I was saying with filmmaking, you know, it's like differentiating. It's just like, well, okay, yeah, there's this tool that can help create some amazing, you know, amazingly generated footage or whatever. But like, do you know how to talk with, like, in terms of like a B2B setup for filmmaking? It's like, do you know how to talk with a client, figure out their needs, telling their story on camera, whatever it may be, or, you know, maybe it's not like a story-driven video, maybe it's a more commercial style thing, or maybe something specific, like if it's a product-based business, maybe specific with their product, you know. So there's all these like nuances, and again, that's just my industry in particular, but yeah, this general idea of like raising the bar and, you know, doing a better job at what we already do, you know. I think it's a good motivator. Yeah.
You know, and I think that it's definitely going to change a lot in the next couple of years. I mean, that's what everybody's saying is like, We don't know how it's going to change, but we know shit's going to change. You know, we don't know exactly how, you know, but it's going to. And so I think it's important for people to like really gear up for that. And if people are listening and they haven't logged into ChatGPT, which is completely free and completely disrupting everything, like I would say that what it takes to be geared up for change is small right now, because you just stay plugged in, stay engaged with the changes, try to use it as much as you can, replace Google for a little while, build some different habits. You know, the next time you have a question about stuff, just go to ChatGPT and ask it. I mean, do you know how many times I will, because you can have it on your phone, it's free on your phone, and you can engage with it. You can like talk back and forth with it on your phone, and Android and iPhone, where I'm in the car and I'm on my way to go meet a potential client, and they're in the like fiber optic space, and I know nothing about fiber optics. And so I'll turn on ChatGPT while I'm in the car, and I'll say, I'm on my way to a client, you know, this is their company, this is what they do, and I know nothing. Can you help me to prepare? And it understands you, like it knows what you're talking about, and it'll be like, all right, well, this is this. And I'm like, I know that, but I'm really confused about this. All right, well, they're in Boston. What's really the thing about that? You know, and you can engage with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and that's the fundamental part of the technology. This might be getting way too technical, but the idea of these large language models is they're trying to understand human language. It's trying to specifically quantify and understand human language, which is rather complex. And so the way it does that is through text. Like it's through, you engage with it through typing or saying something, which then translates the text, you know, and then it spits text out. It's all based on language, right? Large language models, you know, so people who are afraid of it, like, keep in mind it's language based. We can only do so much right now, right? Yeah. So you ask it a certain thing, it breaks those words into what are called tokens. And a token is like, we'll just say about a word. There are some longer words that can be broken up into multiple tokens. Each of those tokens are then, through their backend database, prescribed some kind of, we'll just call it a value, where maybe there's, and this is kind of, I'm making this up because like we don't know exactly how they're doing these things, but like let's say that there are 100 different ways that you can determine the value of a word. It can be aggressive, or it could be, you know, a kind word, or it can be describe something slow, or however it is determining the intent of this word, and it's prescribing it this like value. It's stringing all of those together, and then it's trying to predict the next likely string of words based on the one that you gave it. So that's fundamentally how it's working. Mm-hmm. So it's important to keep in mind that it can't make actions yet. It's not some actions, but it's not really there yet. It's not that great at that. And that you should be getting better at having conversations with AI. Mm-hmm. That's really the fundamental practice, is engaging with this technology and being a good communicator, which, if we really have to reduce this down, is the fundamental skill of anybody's success, is one's ability to communicate. And I didn't come up with that. You know, I know, you know, I'm not a religious guy, but the Tower of Babel is like, if you're going to read anything, it's like a really quick read. And it pretty much says that at one point humans built a tower that could reach God, and then God said no and tore the tower down, and then he splintered language, and then to keep humans from being able to rebuild the tower, right? So you kind of reverse that, and you go, all right, well, the strongest thing that we could have is if we communicated with one another. And you can look at, you know, the first documented God, right? I forget his name, but at the same time, like Tiamat was the devil of that kind of first religion, and he represented chaos, and like the god of that religion had eyes on all sides of his head and could speak magic words, and like it kind of makes sense where it came about at this period where people were starting to graduate past these like 200-person tribes and needing something in the middle between groups of people to like come to be on the same page about. And the one thing that they could be is like, hey, without knowing there's chaos, and the person who communicates and speaks magic words ends up, and has all these different levels of perspective, can usually squash chaos, right? So like communication has been the fundamental skill for anybody to be good at anything. So that has not changed. So yes, has AI changed some things? Will it change some things? Yes, but ultimately, your ability to communicate and use your words effectively have been and will be the single, greatest determining factor of your success.
Wow. I think that's a powerful note to close us out. Do you, I think you went into this a little bit. Talk about maybe any announcements or just in general the future of Kingside or the chess club that you want people to know about.
Sure. I mean, always down to play chess. I mean, we meet at Acoustic Java every Sunday. That's for free. Pretty soon we're starting rated games on Thursday nights. So stay clued in for those. Kingside is an AI automation and website development company. We help businesses work smarter, not harder, with technology. So I love working with local service providers as well. I ran a moving company at one point, so I learned a lot from that, and love working with people that are invested in helping their communities, and I like helping them to do that.
Oh, I love that. That sounded something like straight out of $100 million offers. That's like a Hermosi type of value proposition there, man.
I read that in $100 million leads too, yeah.
Oh, love it. Love it. Dustin Hopkins, thank you so much for coming on, man. I got to have you back. This is
Mark,
tremendous.
Anytime, brother.
Love it. Take care, man.